Hello everybody. This short video is going to explain how we intend governance on the hypergraph network and show some of the tooling and processes around how our network governance proposal process works. So analogous to Ethereum and Bitcoin, which have BIPs and EIPs, we have the HIPs, the Hypergraph Improvement Proposal Process. And HIP1 solidifies that improvement process. It solidifies all the steps, how we want to govern ourselves as a decentralized community, how we do code proposals, how we do informational proposals or process proposals. And HIP1 really solidifies all that, and we expect HIP1 to evolve over time. So this is just the first iteration of how we see network governance, and this may evolve into whole new regions that are appropriate and that we as a decentralized community come together around and improve upon the process. So with that said, I want to show you some of the tools or basically all of the preliminary tools that we're using with HIP1. And the landing page for all network governance processes is hypercore.org. Hypercore has link outs to all the tools and all the places where governance happens and is tracked. So Hypercore houses not only the links, but a forum that is similar to Ethereum Magicians, where we track and trace HIP proposals, some community discussions, and where we archive basically the pros and cons for each HIP proposal, so that people in the world and in the wider community and also later in time can go back and see what was the logic around certain HIPs, what were the considerations that went into implementing a certain proposal. So hypercore.org. The second one is Discourse. Discourse is linked out as well from Hypercore. It's meant to be a more fluid discussion, more ad hoc, much better, of course, to be fast in a chat app than a forum. But really the difference is the forum itself is kind of like an archival function, whereas Discourse is really like for quick interaction of us in the community. And then the third tool right now is housed on Lattice. It is linked out on Hypercore as well. So as a last process step, we have implemented a coin voting step so that all our community can vote with DAG on proposals in the future. This may change over time. We may go fully on-chain, or we will just see what works, but this is currently the step, and obviously we may pull that from Lattice onto Hypercore as well, so that it's all centered around Hypercore. But those are the three tools we're using. In addition to that, we as a community, we're all, usually very flexible and fast. So working groups may spring up, and people, have their own little Telegram sub-channels. But those three tools are basically the official tools to track and trace HIP proposals. So with that, I want to go briefly into the process. I have outlined that in detail in the Hypergraph Hour as well, but this is really to show again what are we dealing with in HIP1. And it starts with an idea. The idea stage, everybody who has an idea is encouraged to go into our community channels and discuss that idea. And the idea is to find endorsement and find a sponsor for your idea, for your code proposal or your process proposal. And those sponsors, I will show them later. So each interest group in our general ecosystem has a sponsor. And of course, the most important sponsors are the core developers, because every code proposal needs to have an endorsement by a core development sponsor, because they are the guardians of the code. For process and informational proposals, all the other sponsors can be utilized as well, which is usually not as code heavy, of course. Yeah, so once you have found a sponsor at that stage, you should be able to have a draft on your code proposal. There is a reference implementation or some code examples that already go with the draft. It's fully, correctly formatted, and a sponsor helps you formatting as well if there is any need of that. So with the draft stage, an official HIP number is assigned, and it's going to go into the GitHub HIP repository, but it's also going into the Hypercore forum, where all the processes and pros and cons around that HIP proposal are being tracked. And the first example, it's kind of like self-reflexive, is HIP1, which is now already on Hypercore. So with the endorsement and the draft, there comes a review phase. So once you think your proposal is good enough, you really present that to the community. There could be an all core devs call that could be utilized to present to the core engineering team. Also presentations to the wider community in the Discord and Discourse forums, where you can, gain momentum around your HIP proposal. And there's a community discussion that is to be expected. People, fact checking, people testing your implementation. And once it passes that review stage, the author and sponsor, you can either withdraw it if it's deemed not as suitable, or it's being moved to the next stage, which is then the last stage, which is the coin voting with DAG on the Lattice governance voting website. So once it passes that community voting stage, the proposal gets implemented in line with the core engineering roadmap. And at that point, the proposal is live. So that's the general process that we're dealing with here. There's different ways to optically show that. Again, this is more broken down role responsibilities, what author, sponsor, core dev, and the community need to do. It's basically the same thing, just displayed in a different way. The same here, we can display it also around draft, endorsement, review, vote. And at each of those stages, there's a rework phase that is possible, or withdrawal phase. And those stages are tracked and assigned as status flags on the GitHub HIP repository as well. So each HIP, once it has a number, it will be as a markup file in the official Constellation GitHub HIP repository, and the stages will be flagged in that GitHub repository. While on the discourse forum, it's just the tracking and tracing of the conversation. The GitHub actually contains the markup file. Now, in order to gain momentum for your idea, we have sponsors. We have talked to a lot of people in our ecosystem, and those are currently the sponsors. This can and will change over time as we grow as a community, as responsibilities and flavors shift. We have Lukas from Core Engineering as a sponsor for all proposals, all code proposals. So he needs to be lobbied if you have an HIP code proposal. On the foundation side, the Constellation Foundation, I will be the sponsor. Obviously, I'm not a coder, so I can be approached regarding everything around processes and informational type proposals. I would be a good person. Same, we have the node operator group currently represented by Doug. So Doug has engineering skills, so he would be a good person to contact if you already have ideas around code proposals, and he then can talk and align with Lukas, for example, just an example here, but an additional person you can approach from the node operator group community. is TBD. We have sent multiple pings into the community right now. At current, we haven't, nobody has come forward yet to take that community sponsor role. That'll be filled in the coming weeks. And the fifth sponsor group is L0 project. So we have a vast ecosystem with many, many projects building on Constellation, and we call them L0 projects because each of them will have and run an L0 state channel or L1 state channel, depending on how you view it. And Chandru, the CTO of Alchemy, one of our ecosystem projects, he has volunteered to be a dev L0 sponsor in our governance ecosystem. So those are the people we recommend to approach if you have HIP proposals, and use all the tools that we have to track and trace and discuss those HIP proposals. So with that, I'll conclude, and let's govern this network together. Thank you.